You're tuned into the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Zeno Pucks. Here are your hosts, Andy and Brian Matusi.
Alrighty, welcome back. We are here to do a round 2 preview of the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Although we're already one game in due to the delightfully amazing scheduling of the NHL. The second round started after or before the first round ended, so that's kind of weird, but at least it was only one game, so give us a chance. So how you doing?
Dude, it feels like it's been an eternity since we've done an episode and it's only been a week.
Yeah, dropping from 2 shows to 1, it was a weird change. It did feel like it's been like 2 weeks since we did a show, but that's okay. Since we last spoke, my playoff bracket's pretty much been crumpled up and tossed in the garbage. So, we'll get to first round matchups and the fallout from the first round. But because the second round has already started, we might as well get started and preview it, Andrew. And I want to start with the series that has already gotten underway: the New York Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes. I played game 1 yesterday. I wasn't crazy about the goaltending on either end, but ultimately the Rangers had a much better game and were good on special teams. They come up with a 4-3 win in game 1. And so here we are. How are you feeling about this series going into it? And now that they've already played a game, how are you feeling?
Well, I think generally speaking, I expect the Rangers to come out of this series anyway. But I agree with you. The goaltending was sloppy on both ends. And I do still think that this is a series that has a very good potential to go 7 games. These are both two phenomenal teams, and I mean the East as a whole is dangerous this year, but I mean Carolina and the Rangers alongside the Panthers, those are your 3 absolute juggernauts right now. So this is going to be a brutal series on both teams. It's going to be a hard physical series. I liked what I saw last night on New York's end, and that's who I'm pulling for in this series. I know it's kind of weird to hear coming from a Bruins fan, but that's who I'm pulling for. So we'll see how that goes, but this should be a good one.
Yeah, I like New York's game so far. They've come into the playoffs. They've won their first 5 games. They have not lost yet in the playoffs this season, which obviously that's a fantastic start. And for the Hurricanes, much the same. I liked for the most part how they looked against the Islanders. Obviously, they come out in this series and lose game 1, so not great per se. But again, especially when now you're in the second round, you're down to the final 8 teams in the league. There's really nowhere to hide. You can't really find bad teams to play. Anybody you play is going to be good. So I think Carolina would be looking at a tough matchup regardless of who they were playing in the second round, just based on the skill level here. But I like New York's game a lot. It helped that they were at home, of course, but they were really good on special teams. I wasn't crazy about the penalty that Tony DeAngelo took. I agreed with PK Subban on the broadcast. That's not a penalty. DeAngelo tucks his arm and shoulder in and leads with the shoulder, like he's shoulders out, but he's not throwing them at the player he's hitting. He's just leaning into the hit. He extends through to finish the hit, but that's not an elbow or a rough or anything. Correct. So kind of a phantom call on that kind of burned the Hurricanes, but it wasn't a perfect outing from them either. So we'll look to see if they bounce back in game 2. But so far, the game 1 came as advertised. This is definitely going to be a tight checking series.
Yeah.
How many games you got for this one? And I know you're cheering for the Rangers. Do you have them winning it?
I do have the Rangers winning this. For what it's worth, I have the Rangers going to the conference final at the minimum. That's all I'll speak for right now. But given the 2 teams that are playing each other, I'm going to say Rangers in 6.
I like it. If you would have asked me, and again, because we have bias because one game's already been played, but
right.
If you had to ask me now or before the series, I would have probably said Rangers in 7. I'm going to go Rangers in 5 and go completely off the sheet here. If they can follow up with another great game and win at home and go into Carolina with a 2-0 lead, I really like their chances to close this out quick. But you never know. The playoffs are wild. I could be completely off base, as I was in many of my other picks in the first round. So we'll see where we're ending up. But I am taking the Rangers in this one, and I still to this point have them winning the whole thing. So yeah,
I don't know about all that, but
we'll see what happens. We're gonna move over to the other Eastern Conference matchup, which is the Boston Bruins and the Toronto. Jesus, and the Boston. It's Boston and Florida. And so this is one where I got both picks in the first round wrong. I had Tampa and Toronto, which To my delight, we're both incorrect because I did not want either of them to win. So now here we are, Florida and Boston, round 2, a rematch from the first round last year. This would be a really good matchup. I really like how this looks for the Panthers. They played really well against Tampa Bay, who is a very well-seasoned playoff team. They come into this really well rested. They had the better part of the last week off, so they had time to rest and recuperate. It looks like the only guy not ready to go for game 1 is Sam Bennett. And for the Bruins, they just get out of a really grindy, tough series with the Leafs. They come out with a win, of course, due to, in large part, to the fantastic play of Jeremy Swayman in the goal. But now the Bruins come into this as the underdog, as the lower seed. They're going to start these first 2 games in Florida against a team that's been relaxed and probably sitting on the beach the last 5-6 days.
Yeah, and this is I don't want to say a nightmare scenario for me, but it's going to be interesting because these are my 2 favorite teams, and this is the gamble you take when you root for 2 teams in the same, not just conference, but in the same division for that matter. But
see,
Florida,
it doesn't pay to be a fake fan.
Okay, shut up. Obviously I'm a Bruins fan first, but dude, I'm telling you right now, and we've talked about this, you and I, over the last week. If the Bruins play against the Panthers the same way they played against Toronto, this is going to be a very quick series because Florida's going to walk all over them. And either way, one of my teams is going to the conference finals, so that's cool. But it makes it harder to watch the series because it's like it's such a double-edged sword. I'm going to hate and love this series at the same time. But like you said, Florida played so well against Tampa Bay, which is a well-seasoned playoff team, some good veteran presence on there. You still got Andrei Vasilevsky, who's an elite goalie, and they made Tampa look silly. So Florida's dangerous. Florida's the real deal. Boston, you can argue right now, if Swayman wasn't in net, that series was Toronto's all day.
Yeah. And we'll get to the Leafs in a while because we will talk about the teams that did not advance. But yeah, I think if the Bruins have any chance to win this series, they're going to need 2 things. First of all, they need Swayman to play the exact way he did in round 1, not allowing more than 2 goals in any of the games, not allowing more than one in some of them. But he just looked really good. The Bruins need to step it up. Florida's a really fast, really highly skilled team. They don't make many mistakes, and they don't forgive many of your team's mistakes. So all the more important for the Bruins to get out ahead of them as best they can in every game. But realistically, based on the skill level, I'm going to go ahead and say Panthers in 6 on this one, as I do think they won't. As I think the Bruins won't win, but I certainly can see Jeremy Swayman stealing a couple for them.
I don't disagree with you on that. However, there's one thing I want to add before I make my prediction. And one thing the Panthers need to do right this series, stay the hell out of the box. I don't know. They just can't. It stayed with them all series against Tampa. It was the same way last year, and it was the same way the season before. They just can't stop taking stupid penalties.
No chance Pasternak stays that quiet in this series either.
Well, there's that.
He's got to be. I mean, he finished the series against Toronto on a high note, so he's due. But yeah, to your point, if the Panthers don't stay out of the box, I don't think Pasternak's going to be too forgiving after getting snubbed a bunch in the first round.
Absolutely. And to that, I say something that may surprise you, but I'm going to say Panthers in 5.
Panthers in 3. I like it. Okay. All right. Let's move to the Western Conference. And I was right on both of these. I was sad I was right about Vancouver, but we are looking at an all Canada series here. Edmonton makes quick work of LA, and Vancouver is able to outlast the Predators and was a really low scoring affair. But we get an all Canadian second round, which means we're going to have we're going to have one team for sure in the conference finals now, or one Canadian team in the conference finals now, which is kind of cool. Looking at this matchup, I like this for Edmonton in every respect. Obviously the Canucks are probably a more soundly structured team, but you don't know the status of Demko yet. You don't know what Shelovs is really going to be based on his workload. I mean, he looked fantastic against the Preds for what it was worth. But we know what the Oilers' MO is. They're going to come out, they're going to throw 1,000 shots at the net, and they're going to beat you down. And that's usually enough to win them games.
Right. And even if the Canucks don't have Thatcher Demko, I think there's still something to be said for Casey DeSmith. I like the way he looked in the Nashville series.
He might not play though. It's probably going to be Shilov's.
Well,
I mean, Shilov's played the last 2 games for them. I don't see a world where DeSmith gets back in the net unless Shilov's gets injured.
well, and I mean, we'll see too. Like I said, their backup options aren't bad options.
No, they aren't.
That's my point here. So, but Edmonton, like you said, is going to absolutely pepper that net with shots. And I mean, ultimately, I have Edmonton coming out of this series. I was a little surprised, the first round with Vancouver and Nashville, that it took as long as it did on Vancouver's end. But like you said, low scoring affair. It just is what it is. But I think this is going to be another series like the Rangers and the Hurricanes, where it's going to be a very neck and neck affair the whole way through. This is another one I can see going 7 games. That's not what I have it going, but it won't surprise me if it does. With that being said, Edmonton in 6.
I like it. I like the pick, and for what it's worth too, I do like the way Vancouver. Again, I like the way the team is structured. So I don't think they blow me away in any particular fashion, but they have some really skilled top 6. They're looking for more out of Pettersson, and they want to keep getting more out of Besser and JT Miller, and they want to keep filling in the net. Obviously, you have Quinn Hughes on the back end, who's obviously the anchor to that blue line. He's just a fantastic player. He's a great skater. He's got a great offensive mind. But I say all that to say that, listen, it's an all-Canada series. There's already really bad blood between both of these teams. There's going to be tempers flaring. That kind of series plays more to Edmonton's style, as they have very chippy guys that can get into those nasty battles. And they have the guys that'll absolutely destroy you on power play. So when it gets nasty and they're able to draw a penalty out of Vancouver, they're going to have Hyman and McDavid and Draisaitl make them pay. And so for all the great things Vancouver can do right, I'm still going to take Edmonton in 7 in this series.
I like that pick a lot. So we'll have to watch that one closely. That's going to be one of my favorite series throughout this entire playoffs, I think, mostly just because I'm going to be pulling hardcore for the Oilers and Connor McDavid.
Yeah, that's fair. So now we'll get to the last series, and like the Eastern Conference, my bracket, I picked one matchup completely correct, and I picked the other one completely incorrect. So in this second round here, we have the Avalanche against the Dallas Stars. For myself, I thought the Jets were going to the Cup, and now my bracket instantly got destroyed in 5 games. We'll get to the Jets. But for this matchup, Dallas comes in to knock off the defending Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights. They come out. Jake Ottinger rebounded really well. When we talked in our playoff preview show, we mentioned how important it is for Ottinger to stay on his game. I largely thought he did that in this series. I didn't like how he looked on a few of the goals throughout the series, but overall, he was a really calming presence. And for how easily that series could have gotten away from Dallas after they went down 2-0, he held the fort, and they did what they needed to do. And it took 7 games, but here they are going up against one of their biggest rivals in round 2.
Yeah, that's going to be it's just like all these series are absolutely insane. It's pretty much sticking to the trend of the regular season. Everything was just fucking nuts this year. And it's to say it's no different in the playoffs this year. I think Colorado Dallas is going to be a bloodbath.
That'll be a good one. I'm hoping each game is like 7-5.
Oh, dude, I'm willing to bet that these are going to be high scoring games for this series, mostly because, again, we know how Georgiev can be. And Ottinger, we'll see how he does against a team like Colorado, who offensively will just destroy you if you let them. So I think this is a good matchup.
This is a big pivotal point for Jake Ottinger in his career. And there's a couple young guys in Dallas too, like looking at Robertson and Johnston. This is their chance to really make and leave their mark. Johnston already I just saw a stat, he's not even 21 and he's got 2 Game 7 goals in his career already. More so for Jason Robertson and Jake Ottinger, this is their chance to prove how elite they are. We know they're good players, but Ottinger in the big moments has faltered previously. But he's obviously righted that ship a little bit, because now he comes out, plays great in Game 7, gets the win, only allows 1 goal. He needs to keep that going. And I'm going to be extra critical of Dallas, given they're my favorite team's biggest rival, and I watch closely what they do. But for Jake Ottinger, it is imperative here that he locks it down in this series like he did in round one, because if he can't, Colorado, in the same fashion as Edmonton, will just run you right the hell over. So this is Jake Ottinger's chance to ascend to the best of the best in goalies. We know he's good. We know what his potential is. We know how great he can be. This is his chance to cement himself and do what Connor Hellebuck just couldn't do this playoffs.
Yeah, we'll get into Connor Hellebuck because I got
yeah,
some
we
shit
will.
to say.
We'll get to the Jets later on, but overall, this is probably the series I had the toughest time picking. You know, I thought for sure the Jets were going to the Cup final and how well Colorado came out and beat them. But after watching how Dallas was able to hold the fort and make an incredible comeback against the defending Cup champion, I don't see why Dallas can't win this series. And because of that, I'm going to say Dallas in 7.
Oh, well, we're on the same page because that's what I was going to say. So I just don't see this. Again, this is largely going to depend on how Ottinger plays and how well Dallas does defensively, because, again, we know Colorado's an offensive juggernaut. So, I say if Ottinger's on point, this is going to Dallas, but it's not going to come easy. This is going to be an uphill battle.
This will probably be the best series of the second round. Carolina, New York's a really good one, and the All Canada series will be fun. I think this will be the best series of the second round, though. And so we'll see what happens. But Colorado, they proved so many people wrong in the first round. And really, other than game one, Georgiev's been one of the best goalies in the playoffs. So, it could come out. I mean, we could be talking in 2 weeks again that Colorado just ran over Dallas. I mean, I didn't think they had a chance against Winnipeg, and they beat them in 5. So I certainly, as much as I think Dallas will win this series, I will not at all be surprised after what Colorado did to the Jets. I will not be surprised if they do the same to Dallas either. But as a smart man, I'm going to go ahead and say Dallas here for round 2.
Yeah, Dallas in 7, and here's to hoping that all the dogging we did on Georgiev throughout the season doesn't come back to bite us in the ass.
Yeah, I was going to say, watch him have a Conn Smythe run now. So Jesus. There are 8 teams left in the playoffs. And with these 8 teams, obviously one of them is going to win the Stanley Cup. And so just to add an element of fun to this, Andrew and I have come to the agreement that whoever wins the Stanley Cup, we will both buy a jersey from that team. Now, in Andrew's case, if it's the Bruins or the Panthers, I mean, he's already got a handful of jerseys of both of those teams, so that'll kind of shoot that down. For myself, I have a Bruins jersey and I have an Oilers jersey. Looking at the rest of these teams, I don't think I have any of them. So there's a 3 out of 4 chance overall, 75% chance that where each of us is buying a new jersey at the end of this. But I think it'll just add an element of fun. I really hope I don't have to buy a Dallas Stars jersey, because I'll just have to donate it after I wear it on the show.
Well, I hope the Panthers or the Bruins win it so I don't have to do shit.
Yeah, well, I would assume you'd want them to win because they're your favorite teams.
Well, that too, but
yeah. So we'll see what happens. But I just figured that we figured that'd be a fun way to kind of add some fun to this, given that our playoff brackets were kind of a mess anyways. We can do something that's fun since our brackets are pretty well out.
I have something to add to that. My bracket is not out the window. Of the 7 brackets I did, I have one that was perfect.
Oh, here the guy that bought 50 lottery tickets is like, man, I almost hit on some of these.
But the one that when we did our bracket previews, the bracket that I used for that show is the one that's perfect. So
it's still, you picked them all right in round 1?
I picked them all right in round 1 with the exception.
You took Colorado over the Jets?
I took Colorado over the Jets, and I took Dallas over Vegas because I can. And the only thing I don't have right on there is the amount of games for each series, because I had Tampa going 7 with Florida, and that didn't happen. And then same with Colorado. I had that series going 7 games as well.
I do not remember you taking Colorado, and I thought you took the Jets.
Maybe I got to go back and look.
I think you got to go back and look. I am almost certain we were all in agreement that the Jets had no chance of losing that series. But either way, I mean, hey, even if that's the case, 7 out of 8 is damn good. So keep riding the wave. All right. So, but we're gonna kind of dissect the teams that lost in the first round now, and we're gonna slowly go through each one here, or not slowly go through each one, but we'll go through each one, talk about what they did wrong in this series, what they need to do this offseason, and we'll go from there. But first, let's take a moment to mention our sponsors.
Yay. All right. As always, Fresh Ice is brought to you by Xenopucks. I don't know if I'm holding that right side up. I think I am. Looks like it. Xenopucks, if you don't know by now, Make a high-quality, top-tier off-ice practice puck meant for use on virtually any off-ice surface, whether it be the floors in your house, carpet or tile or hardwood, or if you want to take it outside, out front of your house, maybe in the garage, you can use it on concrete or asphalt. I've seen people use it on dirt and turf. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but if you want to, you can. We don't recommend you use this for a game because it's pretty hard. It is not made out of rubber. So do not injure yourself with this because it does hurt, and be cognizant because it flies off the pipe like a regular hockey puck. And it is also the same size and weight as a regulation hockey puck. So if you're looking for one of these, the green biscuit, whatever you're using just isn't cutting it for you, head over to xenopucks.com right now. Pick one of these bad boys up. They also got a pretty sweet merch selection over there. And be sure to follow them on Instagram at xenopucks. And make sure you tell them that Andy and Brian sent you.
That's right. And now if you're going to be practicing outside in your driveway, why, with how expensive these sticks are, $300, $400, $500, $600 hockey sticks, don't know why on earth you want to protect your investment. So luckily our friends at the Hockey Wraparound have allowed you to do that. Between their large variety of products, they offer a premier hockey blade wraparound. It's going to protect the bottom of your stick from damage from any off-ice surface, as well as protect your pristine tape job. So go ahead and visit hockeywraparound.com/freshice and use the code FreshIcePod to get you 15% off your order and protect your investment.
Oh, we switched sides.
Oh, we did. Oh, look at that. Here, I don't like that. We'll switch back around.
There we go. I like that better.
All right. Boy, I don't know why it did that. But anywho. All right. So now let's move and we'll do our lighting tough look of the week because that will segue into us breaking down the teams that lost in round one. Who's the tough look of the week? Brought to us by.
Tough look of the week, as always, is brought to you by Lighting's Property Management out of Kenosha, Wisconsin. For all your landscaping, lawn care, and snow removal needs, give Lighting's a call. They do it all, except answer the phone when I call.
Yeah, and for good reason, too. I mean, if you looked at your caller ID and saw that, you'd probably just throw your phone away.
Yeah,
that's what I do.
Either.
So, all right. So the tough look of this week is Mitchell Marner, forward from the Toronto Maple Leafs. The series goes 7 games. The Leafs play an excellent game 5 and 6. A really good game 7, I thought, an all-timer. That was a really tight checking game. Both those goals in regulation were, a minute and a half apart. Overtime comes in, and Lindholm launches the puck down the ice. And between Morgan Rielly, Ilya Samsonov, and especially Mitch Marner, nobody picks it up, and David Pastrnak dumps it into the goal for the OT game winner and series winner. Mitch Marner on the replay completely loses Pastrnak in coverage, does not back check worth shit, and is the first one staring in the back of the net when the puck's in there after it was all said and done. And then he followed it up with a greatest hit at the postseason media availability by saying that the players on the Leafs are looked up to as gods in Toronto, which I think I know what he was trying to say is just that they're idolized by the city and loved and revered despite being the Leafs. And I get what he's trying to say, but wow, did that come off horribly. And to make it worse, it pretty much seems like those sound like the words of a guy who's on his way out anyways. Just that extreme level of candor and carelessness, the way he was describing that, I just thought reeked of a guy who knows he's on his way out. And I thought a lot of what Sheldon Keefe had to say in his media availability kind of said the same thing. But yeah, Mitch just with a rough couple of days. And so he earns our tough look of the week. And since he was our tough look of the week, we'll start with the teams that lost in the first round, and we'll start with the Maple Leafs. So here's how we got here. The Leafs come out in this series. They win game 2 after losing game 1. They lose both games at home in Toronto. They just looked vastly behind Boston in this series. They come back and they win game 5 in Boston. They win game 6 in Toronto. They have great play from Joseph Woll in that. Fortunately, Woll gets injured. Samsonov comes in game 7, plays a good game for the first 50 minutes, and then gives up that really bad goal to Hampus Lindholm, and of course is one of the guilty parties on the overtime goal that allowed the Bruins to win the series. So for the Leafs, it's, there's a lot you can point at to what they did wrong. There was injuries at play. They didn't play especially well the first 4 games, particularly. But where do they go from here now? We talked about it before. If they don't win this series, it's probably it for this core. And It certainly is going to be it for the coach. It seems like when management does their meetings in the next few days, I think we'll largely know the future of this team. But from everything we can tell, it looks like that core four is about to implode.
Well, there's that, dude. Shanahan's got to go too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Shanahan's on the way out. All signs seem to point to him and Keefe being gone.
Yeah, which there's your number one step right there. Those are the first two things that need to be dealt with. As far as the core goes, I mean, they're so wrapped up cap wise in these same four players who severely underperformed in the playoffs. I mean, Matthews, you give him a little bit of an excuse because he didn't play because he had whatever undisclosed illness. I heard it might have been mono. Who knows? Honestly, who cares? The series is over. One thing I just want to address right now, I've seen this a lot on social media. I've had other friends of mine send this to me, this damn video clip. Look, that goal Pasternak scored on, no, it should not have been an icing. Yes, the puck was fired from behind the red line. However, Pasta won the race to the puck and touched it first because everybody on Toronto was just like,
yeah, also Nylander, I saw a clip of Nylander just rolling into the zone. It's not his responsibility to back check there. His job is to stay high at the point and cover the high forward. I know it looks bad just when they put him on the ISO cam, but realistically, his job is not to be crashing the net. It should be Riley, who's the defenseman, and Marner, whose guy is to cover is Pasternak on that play. So, and yes, for Christ's sake, Samsonov should have been coming out to play that. That puck should have never even gotten to Pasternak. But
yeah, well,
yeah,
that's
to your point, that should not have been an icing at all. Great hustle by Pasta and a slick feed with not a lot of room to put it in the net.
Absolutely. And that honestly, that goal should have never happened. You factor in all of that. That goal should have never even happened. Yeah, Mitch Marner didn't back check on it. I get it. He wasn't covering Pasta, but here's my thing. Like you said, Samsonov should have been coming out to play that. Ultimately, that falls on Samsonov. 100% at the end of the day. That goal should have never happened. And no, it shouldn't have been an icing unless Pasta didn't win the race with the puck.
But see, here's the thing. It would have been an icing if had Marner or Riley back check, that would have been an icing, and Samsonov would have. And if I'm Samsonov, part of my thought process is why the fuck is nobody dropping back to defend? You have three guys at the blue line and nobody's dropped back into the zone when a defenseman is winding up to take a slap shot from his own end. So yeah, it was a mess anyways, but for the Leafs, I mean, they're going to be they're going to be an absolute fire sale this offseason, much in the way the Jackets are going to be. So I think it'll be more fair to assess this team at the start of next season when we know what they have, because the way they look now is simply not going to even be close to what they look like in the fall.
No, and I have to say it, and I'm sure everybody knows it, but I'm pretty sure we've seen Mitch Marner play his last game in a Maple Leafs uniform, at least for a long time.
Yeah. All right, now the Bolts. Boy, did I drop the ball on this. Now, had I known that half the roster was apparently in a car accident with all these fucking injuries they had, I would have taken the Panthers in the series. But nonetheless, I think for Tampa Bay, look, the biggest question mark is Stamkos going to stay around? The core is not getting any younger. I don't want to call them old, but they're not getting any younger. But realistically, this group is good enough and has the talent. I would run it back with the same exact team next year. If you can get Stamkos to resign, great. If not, it is what it is. That's a really high skill level player you need to replace, because for this core to function, you need that big shot that Stamkos provides. Whether it's him or whether it's somebody else of high caliber shooting skill like that, you need to plug that hole. But healthy, I think this team can run it back and run it deep next year. It just did not work out for them this year. And to compound it with the fact that they played a team that was as skilled as the Panthers are, they just really never had a chance.
Yeah, look, if you're a Bolts fan, ultimately there's really nothing to be ashamed of here. I mean, the Bolts are still a very good team, a solid, deep team. Like Brian said, they were pretty fucking banged up. And I mean, that's all stuff that never comes out until a team's eliminated anyway. But to be playing with the amount of injuries they had and the types of injuries they had is absolutely insane. And they were still able to squeak one out against Florida. So I say there's nothing to be ashamed of here. I still think the future is promising for Tampa. Yeah. And as far as Stamkos goes, this is just my opinion. I don't see any scenario where he goes anywhere else than Tampa. I think he resigns.
if he resigns there, they're probably going to want him to take some level of a discount. And I think that's where if he doesn't stay, that'll be the contention point, is that he knows he's worth a ton. And probably 31 other teams in this league would want to pay him a ton. But for Tampa Bay, look, they've mortgaged a lot of their future between the Tanner Jeannot trade and just bringing in assets to bolster them to try and make repeat runs. They've gambled a lot of their future. They traded prospects. They've traded draft picks. It's kind of the reason I want them to try and run it back with this group, whether it's with or without Stamkos. They really can't bank on building for the future quite yet. They need to wait a few more years when they can start having some of their own draft picks again. So I think before this core gets to the point where it's too old to make a run, I think they need to really have another go at it. And that's why I would not be disappointed with the Stamkos re-signing. I'm just interested to see how much money they spend, because we know the cap's going up and everything. But I truly think, and I don't think they're dumb, and I think they're really well run. So I think in that war room, they know they have what it takes to make a deep run. They just got to be healthy.
I don't disagree with you one bit. I will say, if he doesn't re-sign in Tampa, I'm very intrigued to see where he ends up.
Yeah,
we could speculate all day, but
yeah, that one will have to wait till July 1st if he doesn't re-sign.
Correct.
All right, let's move on. We'll be real quick with these two because they both kind of got tossed around. First, the Washington Capitals.
I mean, are we even going to really talk about this?
No, I just want to say, look, it's cool they made the playoffs, but Ovechkin held without a point for the first time in the playoffs for the first time in his career. There was never really a chance there unless Charlie Lindgren didn't allow any goals, and obviously that wasn't the case. So for the Capitals, they were very obviously the worst team that made the playoffs, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, 16 teams make it in. They happen to be one of those teams. It is what it is. I think most other teams that could have played the Rangers in the first round would have suffered a similar fate. But at the end of the day, Washington there was just a valley of a difference in talent between them and the Rangers. And there's much in the same way. I don't think Tampa needs to hang their heads. I really don't think Washington does either. They're just not at a point right now with this group where they're ready to compete. And the fact that they didn't lose every game in the series 7-0 says something about the resiliency of the group.
Yeah, like I said, I said about the Bolts, I'll say about the Caps. There's nothing to be ashamed of here, too. I mean, everybody kind of saw where this was going right from the start. It's a team that barely squeaked in, and I mean, the main reason they squeaked in is because Detroit crapped themselves multiple times towards the end of the series or end of the season. And you're coming in again. You're the lowest seeded team and you're playing the New York Rangers. You did that could have been any team and it probably would have ended the same way. That's the worst first round opponent you could have asked for is who they got. So nothing to be pissed at. Like I said, with the Caps, we said this last week. Now just enjoy the OV record chase. That's what you should focus on.
That's what the next few years are going to be all about.
And that's going to be fun.
2 seasons more than likely. Yeah, I can't wait to see.
Yes, and that's going to happen on your team, so you should be happy about it. I'm not talking to you, Brian, just talking to people. Yeah,
talking to Caps fans.
Yes.
The New York Islanders, look, they came into the playoffs really hot, and normally when you come into the playoffs hot, that bodes well for your team. I always, from the beginning, and when I saw this matchup, thought the Islanders were going to be the exception to this rule. I really didn't see a scenario play out in my head where they were going to best Carolina. I know they came in hot, but the talent, again, we talked about the difference in talent between the Rangers and the Capitals. Now, this is not that because the Islanders, there are a lot of really good players there. I like the goaltending. I like the defense, but when we did our playoff preview, I said that Carolina is built very similarly to the Islanders. They're just built at a much higher level than the Islanders. So it's the same kind of team. It's just a much better version of that team. And that's why I thought the Islanders really didn't stand a chance. So for them to, for them to come in and win a couple games or I'm sorry, did they? No, they won just the one game, didn't they? Yeah, they were out in 5.
Yep,
sorry.
Yeah. Yep.
But for them to come in and win a game against a team that a lot of people gave them no chance against is really good. Now, there were a lot of people that picked them to win the series, which I thought was asinine. But
yeah,
look, again, they're built similarly to Carolina. They're just not as good, and I think that's what we saw here. And for Ilya Sorokin, I really hope he has a bounce back year in that next year because Varlamov's getting old, and Sorokin, when he's at his best, is probably a top 5 goalie in the league.
I couldn't have said it any better. I will say that I thought the Islanders were going to get more than one win. I thought that series was going to go 6 games.
Me too.
But It just is what it is. Like you said, New York's a talented team, but they just don't quite stack up to Carolina, and that's just because Carolina is absolutely lethal. They're right up there with New York and the Panthers. So again, a lot of these teams that got eliminated, there's not a ton to be ashamed of, just because I mean a lot of these guys were tough matchups. As a Bruins fan, if you're a Toronto fan, you should be ashamed of yourself, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of them that feel ashamed, like the guy that burned his jersey. Real quick aside, if you burn your hockey jersey, you're a fucking loser,
dude. If you burn any jersey, you're a fucking idiot. Like you already spent the money on it.
just donate it, give it to somebody who's a diehard fan of your team. If you don't want it, great, don't burn it. Don't be a fucking loser.
Yeah. Well, you are a loser, but don't act like one.
Yeah, I was gonna say don't act the part. Don't be a self-fulfilling prophecy. All right, the LA Kings. Again, this was one where I was surprised at how many people were like, boy, you never know. I picked this series as a sweep. I'm actually surprised LA won a game. Same. They lose in 5. The Oilers very clearly just too good of a team for LA to handle. And now for LA, they have not won a playoff series since they won the Stanley Cup 10 years ago.
Damn. I didn't even realize that.
Since winning the Stanley Cup in 2014, since then they missed the playoffs in 2015, lost to the Sharks in 2016. I believe they did not qualify for a couple years, and then they come and lose 3 in a row to Edmonton the last 3 seasons. So
crazy.
Yeah, it not great for LA. It's been tough going there. I have not been a fan of the structuring of the team, the goaltending, the management. Look, that Dubois contract's terrible. The Kings, and we'll talk about this in the offseason because we'll have to wait and see what happens. And there's a lot of specifics with Dubois and if they try and buy him out. But Rob Blake needs to lose his job there. I mean, he's just done a piss poor job running this team. He tried to address their center depth issues, but he went about it completely wrong and brought in a guy who's absolute poison to the team. They don't address the goaltending. They try to at the deadline, and it doesn't work, which had Linus Ullmark approved that trade, how messy would that be for the Bruins right now? But
probably fine because Swayman's starting. So
no, but having
for Dubois,
for having locker room cancer in there. I mean, I'd much rather have who's the Bruins' third line center right now, not Coyle or Zaka.
Don't tell me.
I'm not. I don't know. It's your team.
Is it Geeky?
It might be.
I think it's Morgan Geeky.
I know he is a center, but
he's more.
I would take him over Dubois, a guy that gives a shit. But look, for LA, I mean, the management just hasn't been there. They really haven't done enough to add weapons. Fiala had probably what I would say is a subpar season for him. If you look at the Dubois, other than the extension, the trade they made to get him when they send Iafallo and Velarde to Winnipeg, both those guys go there and have really good seasons. And Dubois has a terrible season in LA. And so now it's like, now what for the Kings? They're in a really rough spot. They don't have they don't have an elite or a franchise level goalie. Their forwards are pretty good, but not outstanding outside of Kopitar and Danault. And on defense, other than I really am not crazy about anybody other than Doughty. So now what for the Kings? I'm really interested to see where they go this offseason because I think they're going to be sneaky. They're going to have a sneaky fire sale this offseason.
It's going to be a sneaky fire sale, but they already started by firing their coach halfway through the season, and that wasn't even the fucking problem. So
it wasn't the problem, although I don't think their current coach is the problem either. I actually think Hiller's done well for them.
I don't disagree with you, but what I'm saying is they didn't need to fire
McClellan.
Yeah, thank you. They didn't need to fire Todd McClellan to begin with. He wasn't the issue. And like you said, Rob Blake needs to fucking go. There's the part of your problem right there. A good part of your problem. Next thing you need to address, Pierre-Luc Dubois. Get that guy out of the fucking league. That guy has no place in the NHL.
Yeah, listen, they need to buy him out, and they need to buy him out now because on July 1st, his no movement clause kicks in, and then he's stuck there.
Yeah.
And with all that money he's getting, nobody will want him. And with the money he's getting in the nice weather there, he ain't going to want to leave.
Correct.
He will he's the kind of guy where I'm like, I could see him gladly being healthy, scratched 82 games, and being paid $8 million a year to live in California.
God.
Which might buy you a 1-bedroom house there.
I was going to say,
in LA.
in a dump.
But yeah, there needs to be some changes in LA, so I'm interested to see where they go this offseason. An old friend of mine is a really big Kings fan, and so every time I see the mess they've gotten themselves into, I always think about them. I'm like, oh boy, hopefully they turn it around. But nonetheless, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see because there could be a lot to unfold with that team yet. So the Nashville Predators now, another series where I picked the right winner, but I was bummed at the result nonetheless. Nashville, look, they were the bottom seed in the conference for the playoffs anyways. They go up against Vancouver, who just they were not the bottom seed, they were the top wild card, excuse me. But look, they go up against Vancouver, who's a pretty complete team on paper, especially when healthy. Outside of their top line, Nashville's not especially dangerous. There are some good players there. I like Evangelista. I like Novak. But there's just not enough weapons there for that to be a team that can make a deep run. I didn't really like how Saros looked in the playoffs. And so for the Preds, you need to keep building. But I think this summer is a good chance for them to try and make some trades, move some picks around, and bring in some talent. Because there is a formula there. I still like O'Reilly. He's shown he's a good player. He was inches away from getting the tying goal that would have tied up Game 6. And so there are components there to build something great for the future, but going forward, Saros needs to be more consistent in the playoffs if he's going to still stay there. I don't know what their plan is, but I think as far as their skaters go, I like the defense core a lot. They need to bolster their forwards. They need to add some depth there. Their second line should be a third line. Yeah. So they need to move some picks and prospects around, which I know is a kind of an easy cop out, but they have a chance to do something good here. I think they're far from being a rebuilding team or anything like that. They just got to turn it around quick this offseason.
Yeah, this isn't all hope is not lost if you're a Preds fan. I would say this isn't even like, oh, it's time for a rebuild. No, you're not even close to that point yet, if you ask me. To your point about Ryan O'Reilly, I personally love Ryan O'Reilly. He's one of my favorite players in the league, one of the most respected, I think. I think he's a really good fit in Nashville, and I think he should stay there. I think you should try to build around him. He's got a good veteran presence. He's got a Stanley Cup to his name. I think keeping him there is the right move. As far as Saros goes, I won't be surprised to see him go this offseason, and that could work out very well because you get a good return for him. And as far as goaltending goes, they have some good prospects, especially as far as the Milwaukee Admirals are concerned. So I'm not saying that they're necessarily ready, but there's some good options there for them. So, but I say build the team around Ryan O'Reilly. That's my opinion.
That's fair. Now remember, O'Reilly's not getting any younger. So again, they have to do something quick, but yeah. All right. We're going to save the Jets for last year. I want to just jump and talk about Vegas real quick. So obviously coming up short when you're trying to run and have a title defense, obviously a first round exit's not the result you're looking for. They had some injuries and stuff they dealt with, and ultimately they just couldn't keep up with Dallas when it came down to it. They let a really good series lead get away from them. And so for them, I really don't think too much needs to change. I just think they need their best guys to be their best players. Eichel was not as good as I thought he'd be. The whole top line was kind of a letdown. You know, has Marchessault played his last game in Vegas? There's a couple variables they're going to be looking at this offseason, but this is certainly a team that's gifted enough to make a deep run again with some tweaks.
Absolutely. I think this one kind of caught everybody off guard. I know there are a lot of snobs out there like, oh, the cheaters, the cap space cheater. Shut up.
Look, well, and to that point, hey, listen, if they're going to cheat if they want to cheat the cap again, that's fine. I mean, obviously we know they can make the playoffs, so let's see what kind of damage they can do.
Well, and on top of that, obviously it had no effect on anything this year because they were still a first round exit. So I just want everybody to shut up about the cap space stuff. And I'm not a Knights fan by any stretch. I'm just saying every team had the opportunity to do the same thing. Regardless, Vegas is an excellent team. They're stacked through and through. And I think it was a rough ending to the year for them. Just caught a bad break. I think next season they're going to make a much deeper run. I am interested to see what happens with Marchessault, though. I was thinking about that earlier in the week, and I'm like, where does he go from here? Back to Florida? No, I'm just kidding.
Also, I'd like to just say that I was right the whole time when I said they should have played Aiden Hill over Logan Thompson. Listen, yes. Thompson had some really good games in this series, but you saw the way Aiden Hill was in game 6 and 7, a 1 goal allowed in a 2-game span, or sorry, 2 goals allowed in a 2-game span, including a shutout. I mean, how the hell can you ask for anything more? So, that's the guy you win the cup with. You really should have given him the net. I know Thompson was better as of late, but the playoffs are a different animal. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, Vegas, much in the same way. I think Tampa is perfectly built to run it or make another deep run. I think Vegas is kind of in the same court.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with the Winnipeg Jets. And it's already the wheels are already kind of falling off the wagon here. They come into the playoffs. They fall flat on their face after game 1. They have a good game 1 and get the win. They score 7 goals, but allow 6, which is not great. But then they lose 4 straight to Colorado. Hellebuck was terrible in every game, a sub 850 save percentage for the series, I believe. Not even close to what we expect from when we think of Connor Hellebuck. And to make things worse for the Jets now, Rick Bowness officially announcing his retirement from the NHL after 38 seasons of coaching between assistant jobs and head coaching jobs. So now you need to bring in a voice who understands what to do with a pool of pretty well-skilled players, I would say elite players. You need to bring in somebody who can handle that caliber. That I think of a guy like Craig Berube. I think he's the first one that jumps off the page at me, but you need to bring in a playoff caliber coach if you're going to handle this team, and you need to get somebody that can get Hellebuck dialed back in for the playoffs.
And that guy is not Mike Babcock. So
no, well, Mike Babcock will never coach again.
Yeah, I know.
No, he's getting paid by 2 teams to not coach right now. Actually, I don't think he's getting paid by the Leafs anymore, but he was getting paid by 2 teams to not coach. So
that sounds like a good gig, honestly.
It is, but yeah,
I'll take that gig.
So I'm interested to see where the Jets go, but I mean, this is not at all the result I think anybody was expecting. Even if they lost in the first round, I don't think anybody thought it was going to be this catastrophically bad.
No, I was fucking mind blown. I don't know what the fuck happened to Connor Hellebuck, man, but it was just instant diarrhea in your pants right from the start.
Yeah, he was so bad. Even the game they won, he allowed 6 goals. I'm like, holy shit, that was a rough outing. But I thought they'd bounce back, and they just never did. They just spun their tires for 10 days straight and lost in round 1.
I mean, we said before that series started, it was definitely going to be a goaltending battle too. That is not what I call a battle. And
by the way, full props to Alexander Georgiev. After just a shitty game 1, he comes back and he just shuts it the hell down for 4 games straight. So good for him and making all of us look stupid, because if the Avs go on a run here, we are all going to look like the dumbest people on the planet. So here's to you, Alex.
Yeah, man, no shit. And to Connor Hellebuck, I don't even have words, man. Yeah, I still can't even fathom, like, what the hell happened. There had to be something else going on there.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything about any injuries or anything crazy. They just didn't show up. Also, the Jets got to stop doing the whiteout. That thing, they're an 0-for on the whiteout. It's got to stop. Yeah. Just do something different. It's not. I don't even think it's that cool. They just do it, and it's good that it unites the fans and it's something for everybody to do. But hockey's a game where everybody's very superstitious, and I personally am not. But look, when there's no tradition of winning, when you're doing something like that, change it up, do something different.
Well, not only that, this is just personal, but y'all's white jerseys aren't even that nice. So
no, their road jerseys they're one of my least favorite road jerseys in the league.
So, I mean, I get the idea behind it, and I know every team's got their thing, but it's okay to change it up once in a while, especially when what you have been doing hasn't worked. So, not that truly affects the outcome of the game, but still. Yeah. Boo Jets in the sense of what the hell happened. I had much higher hopes for you.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll see where the rest of the playoffs takes us, specifically round 2 here. Andrew, before we go, we have 2 things to get to. The first is, do we have any questions we need to answer?
Bro, I forgot to look before the show started. Hold on. Let me look.
That's okay, because while you do, we can announce that we recently had Bob Pizzini on the show, and couple of his friends have we've since had contact with them, and next Sunday we are going to have Mark Mowers on the show. He is a former NHL player, played with a couple different teams, most notably the Boston Bruins. Currently in his retirement, he is a pro scout for the Minnesota Wild. So we're very excited to have Mark on the show next week, and can't wait to interview him. And don't forget that show will be live too, so you'll have a chance to watch it as it happens. But don't worry if you miss it; it'll still be on all our normal platforms.
I am beyond.
I would say Andrew's ready to run through a wall. I'm super excited to have Mark on. It's going to be a good show.
I would say I talked to him a little bit earlier this week, and he's excited too, which is making me in turn even more excited. So
yeah, nothing better than talking puck with the boys. So I think since he's a scout for the Wild, I think I'm going to cover my backdrop with Wild stuff for next show.
I think this is a perfect first guess because he's a former Bruin, currently works for the Wild. I think this is the perfect first guess for us. That's
somebody who's actively involved in the league. I am really excited to have him on. So definitely don't want to miss that. Make sure you're tuned in. And if you have time, I understand next Sunday is Mother's Day. So if you're spending time with your wife or your mother or your sister who is a mother or whatever, we totally get it. But if you don't have much going on and you want to tune in with us, we'll be right here streaming it for you.
Absolutely. With that being said, we do not have any questions this week, and that's okay.
Fair enough. Now, before we go, I actually have just one question for you.
Oh God.
You said it a couple times. I want to make sure your stake is still in the ground. You picked the Florida Panthers to win the Cup.
I'm dying on that hill.
How good are you feeling right now after the first round?
Fucking solid, man. I'm not even slightly nervous. Obviously, I'm a Bruins fan first. This is not only am I saying this is Florida's year, this has to be Florida's year, or it's not happening. I don't think.
I think this is their best chance too. I absolutely do.
This team, if this team stays healthy, the only team that has a chance at stopping them is the New York Rangers. If it's not the Rangers, there's nobody in the West that's stopping them. I'm telling you right now. Especially with Vegas out of the picture now, I am not nervous at all. So
yeah, I thought if any team in the West could hold up against the Panthers in the playoffs, it'd probably be Vegas, but they're out now. So this could be the Panthers' chance to do it. They have what I would say, since they got by Tampa so quickly, I would say they have a relatively easy path to the conference final here. Boy, they got to cash in.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the thing. I mean, they do got to cash in. And I'm not knocking my own team. I mean, both of the Bruins and the Panthers are both my teams. I'm a diehard fan of both teams. The thing is, I really don't care if the Bruins end up losing this series. I'll be happy to see the Panthers win a Stanley Cup or have the opportunity to. So, when we did the show with Bob on here, one of the last things I said was go Panthers and go Bruins. That was when they weren't playing each other. Now that they're both playing each other in the same series, I just would like to say, I hope both teams have fun.
Okay. I just hope everyone has fun.
Yeah,
by the way, I just want to mention too, I got the Team USA World Cup jersey behind me. The IAHF World Championships start this Friday, so go USA. And if you're from Canada,
go USA.
Cheer for the USA. So listen, Canada won the U18 Worlds. They can give us a break and let us win the men's world. So yeah, that'll be started by the time our next show comes around. That'll already have been underway. So the tournament will run the 10th of this month through the 26th, I believe, is the gold medal game. So we'll probably drop some updates on that as it unfolds, but obviously they still got to get through group play and everything like that. So yeah, with that, I believe we are all done though, unless you got anything else.
No, I'm just already sick to my stomach for this Bruins Panthers series. So I'm ready for the second round to be done already.
And as a guy with no dog in any of these fights now, I can't wait to watch. So
yay.
All right, everybody. We will see you next Sunday. Remember, we will be live. Follow us on social media, Instagram at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Brian Fresh Ice. And of course, get your questions in. We will gladly answer them either on the YouTube comments or email us contact at freshicehockeypodcast.com. And we will see you next Sunday.
Take care and comb your hair.